Dr. Rao, it's such a pleasure to have you with us on BW Wellbeing World. Thank you so much for flying all the way for this conference. You've been focusing on naturopathy. Uh, all these are ancient sciences that have been in India for a very, very long time. I mean, that's the reason we call them ancient. But somewhere down the line, because of the advent of the modern medicine, these were being considered as unscientific. How could we make naturopathy and these kind of sciences relevant to the modern times for the new generation?
It's a very good question. And I'd like to bring to your attention to the fact that though these are ancient systems of medicine, they have been prevalent all across the globe.
Correct.
If you look at the 1930s and 1940s, this was the kind of medicine which was practiced. Ayurveda was practiced, yoga was practiced, and naturopathy was practiced, even in the Western Europe and US as well. With the advent of modern medicine, with the advent of antibiotics, with the advent of surgery, they took over because during those times the prevalence of infectious disease was more.
Correct.
And people used to die more of infectious diseases than non-communicable diseases that
Yes.
time. And that time we had a problem of malnutrition. But today we have, the scenario is different. Now the infectious diseases have gone down. People don't die of infectious diseases much as they die of non-communicable diseases today. Today the lifestyle related diseases are taking over. Now we have a problem today of overnutrition and malnutrition. In the
Correct.
sense that we don't take the right kind of food. We have a problem of physical inactivity. Okay, we have a problem of lifestyle related diseases. The scenario is changing, and unless we go back to simple ways of living, unless we control our diet, unless we follow the laws of nature, we'll not be able to be disease free.
Correct.
So this ancient science is now getting up. A simple example to give you is this is a historical example. I'll take an example of National Institute of Health, National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, where most of these ancient sciences are being focused upon. So in 1980s, early 1980s, a big survey was done in US where they saw that more than 8 billion of out-of-pocket expenses was happening from the population in US alone for these therapies, CAM therapies. The US government woke up and said, oh, a very huge amount of money is going for the alternative therapies and we need to do something about it. And they set up this National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine in 1992, NIH. And they started investing a lot of money and to develop a lot of evidence and to look at the research among what is happening with complementary and alternative medicine. So all the major medical teaching hospitals in US, Mayo, Harvard, UCSF, UCLA, they all developed this integrative medicine department,
Right.
CAM departments, where they had their own MD professors doing work in different diverse areas. And they formed an association called as Bravewell Collaborative, wherein all the medical teaching hospitals had a common platform. They started developing evidence for all these therapies. And a huge amount of evidence has been got till now. And if you look at PubMed, if you do the key word yoga in PubMed, you get more than 19,000 articles today.
Wow.
You key the word meditation, similar number of articles. You key the word Ayurveda, 8,000 articles. And you key the word naturopathy, more than 20,000 articles. Okay, so the number of publications in this sector is gradually increasing. Unfortunately, more of these is coming from the Western countries rather than coming from India. Okay, and today, if you look at yoga, which is where we have yoga is, is coming from the land of India, from ancient science from India, but the Western countries have really adopted it in a larger sense compared to the Indian population. For a simple example to see, if you look at the number of publications in yoga in PubMed, there's a National Library of Medicine from the NIH from US government. 40% of the publications on yoga are from US alone. India contributes only 22% of the publications.
But this is a very, very important point what you're raising. But the other challenge, while the West is working on the research, etc., but when it comes to the medicines which have been based on naturopathy, etc., they don't get acceptance and approvals in these countries. So while we have started to get traction in India, how can we make our sciences and the medicines based on our traditional sciences and naturopathy find acceptance in the Western world so that we are able to make use of it and commercialize the activities?
The major problem here is Western concept of evidence is based on randomized controlled trials. This is the gold standard for any sort of a nutraceutical or any sort of a pharmaceutical drug from Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy, which was just to come to the market. Okay, so but unfortunately, what happens is when you look at Ayurveda concept, we look at a holistic kind of concept. If you give the same drug to one individual, A individual, he'll metabolize it in a different way. B individual will do it in a different way. see individual do it in a different way based on his dosha type. So it
Correct.
is not the same thing for the drug doesn't make sense for any particular individual.
Right.
So this is a black box concept design we need to adopt there to look at personalized therapies. Now even the Western countries are now going away from RCTs and going to personalized therapy. Simple example of cancer. If you look at the last 4 decades of cancer, I happened to work in a cancer hospital before I came to the Ministry of Ayush. I worked in HCG oncology group.
Right.
And what we saw was in the last 4 decades, we have not improved the survival of patients with solid tumors. Even with the advent of all modern medicine, radiation, chemotherapy, whatever it is. Nothing has happened except for the hematological malignancies. With target therapy, we are able to improve their survival. The reason for this is based on RCTs again. So RCTs, so 60% of them respond to the one drug, they give them this particular chemotherapy, they respond. 40% of them don't respond, but still
Correct.
they get the same chemotherapy. Okay, that's the reason why you don't get the cure rates in cancer.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, the same thing happens here. In the now, what they are doing now is now they're going one step further. They're looking at personalized therapy.
Yes.
Now they're looking at pathways involved in this thing. They're looking at genetic pathways, the genes, the mutations which are happening,
Correct.
and trying to target those mutations and target those pathways. This is called personalized therapy now, and that's
Absolutely.
what we are doing in Ayurveda. That's what we are trying to do in Siddha. That's what we are trying to do in naturopathy as well. We are looking at personalized approach for each particular disease.
You know, I'm going to plug in one more question here. Since you come from a HCG background, you've dealt with cancer, and now you're in naturopathy and you're advocating this particular form of wisdom. What is the role of a patient in your observation where they have responded well and led to survival despite all odds?
This is a very interesting question because my experience with cancer patients goes to about 40 years. I've been working with a lot of patients, and I have a lot of survivors who are even today there. And thankfully, because they are following the right kind of lifestyle. So the first thing is removing the fear factor. Fear that cancer shows a stigma, and it's going to again come back, and that anxiety, the depression which they have, take them out of those particular aspects, trying to make them responsible for their own health. Now, 99% is done by your chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, we know. But what is it that you are doing for yourself?
Yeah.
How can you reduce your stress levels? How do you improve your dietary patterns? How can you produce more antioxidants in your system? How do you improve your immunity against cancer cells? That kind of thing, when you start bringing about a fighting spirit in the patient, and they will become more responsible for themselves.
How
and
do
that's
they
what
bring out this fighting spirit, sir?
Sir, it happens, simple example, we take one step at a time. For example, I'll give you an example of one of my patients. The first patient which I had from the oncologist was a very difficult patient. And this lady was a ductal carcinoma in situ, meaning stage 1 cancer, breast cancer, which could be easily operated, just remove the lump and that should have been done with it. Okay, nothing more required.
Correct.
And this lady has it was a very young woman, she was about 30 years old at that time. And she was coming to the hospital, running away from the hospital in the middle of the night. The next day morning, when the surgery was scheduled for the next day morning, and she used to run away the previous night. And the doctor said 3 times she has done this. If you can convince her to take this treatment, okay, can you reduce her distress, then I'll agree that yoga can do something for her. And I went to her house, I talked to her for 2-3 days, then she got comfortable with me. She was not able to sleep. She was always awake the whole night reading some book or something, watching some TV. Okay, during 1990s, we didn't have mobile and social media at that time. Okay, and this lady started teaching her yoga to help her to sleep, that's it, to make her calm down her mind. So then after a few days, she started sleeping. After a week, she was able to get good sleep. She was very calm. Then I started talking to her how you can help in. Now you're calm. You're able to think clarity now. Now this is what you need to do. If the lump is there, remove it. Surgery is the best treatment for removing cancer. If you can accept it and take care of it, nothing like it. Then at that particular time, anxiety came down, stress came down. She was able to realize the fact. She called the doctor the next day morning, said, I want to take surgery today only. I'm coming to the hospital.
Fantastic.
Okay, so this makes people to gain control over their lives.
Right.
This is very, very important.
Got it.
And we need to work to that particular thing. People have fear of chemotherapy, have fear of nausea, vomiting during chemotherapy. So nausea, a simple example, is a very big problem in chemotherapy. You can control the vomiting by using antiemetics.
Right.
Okay, you have very, very good antiemetics today, you will not get vomiting after chemotherapy. But you feel nauseated, you feel anorexia, loss of appetite will be there. You don't feel like eating food. The smell of food will make you to vomit. Feel like you get a sensation of nausea. Entering the hospital, the smell of the medicines will make you nauseous. Okay, these are anticipatory symptoms born out of anxiety.
Got it.
Reduce the stress, do a lot of deep breathing, reduce the acidity and the gastric reflux because of the chemotherapy, and your intestinal motility is also reduced because of the antiemetics which is given. Gastroparesis is there. Bring back the intestinal motility, or nausea is gone. And we did this study there, which we published in American Society for Clinical Oncology, for which we got a in 2012 we got a merit award for this. We were able to show that a small 20-minute yoga module done on the bedside itself with Shitali Shitikari Pranayama and Uttara Padasana, simple exercises, simple asanas, could help in reducing nausea vomiting in these patients.
Fantastic,
Okay.
fantastic.
So evidence is there for all these things, and it needs to be really problem driven. Like you identify a problem, find the low hanging fruit, try to find a solution to the particular problem. And that is how these medicines and these systems can become popular if you start targeting the problem based approach.
Can I use this example in my book?
Yeah, well, not, why not?
Because
Sir?
I'm coming up with a book on this.
I'll send you my research publication also on this.
I will. We should connect in Delhi, and we should do this.
Yeah.
Dr. Raghavendra, continuing with our discussion, we've been talking about oils. There have been various conversations around oils that are happening. ये ऑयल अच्छा है, ये ऑयल अच्छा नहीं है, इसमें सैचुरेटेड फैट ज़्यादा है, इसमें विटामिन ई कम है या ज़्यादा है. What is your opinion on the usage of oils? Second is, ये जो हमारा लिखा आता है कि no palm oil used and all, is this a marketing gimmick or is this something which is real?
See, palm oil is just one such plant oil, and just like that, you also have groundnut oil. Okay, these two oils are supposed to be having a very high smoky point. In the sense, they smoke at very high temperatures, and these oils can be used for deep frying.
Okay.
Okay,
So they're actually
They
the preferred oils to be
preferred oils
used.
for cooking, especially for deep frying.
Uh-huh.
Whereas there are some of the oils like coconut oil, avocado oil, or olive oil, which have low smoking points, and this can only be used for stir frying and shallow frying.
Right.
Okay? And if you do deep frying for them, then they become very toxic. Now, when you do deep frying, you do it at a very, very short interval, over 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then you just leave it at it. The problem here comes when you start deep frying for a longer duration of time. That is when the oils become more rancid, they get completely oxidized, and they turn into some toxic compounds.
So
which
that
are
is,
carcinogenic
but
as
that
well.
is true for
Yeah,
every oil.
It's true for every oil.
So it's not that palm oil has to be targeted.
It's not a palm oil should be targeted. The problem here with also with palm oil or with the groundnut oil is also to do with the refining process. Now, if you use unrefined oil, they are much better. But when you start refining them with chemicals and other things, then their natural ability to have protective function is also lost to some extent. That is one thing. Now, oil contains fats. Now, free fatty acids are very important for immune function, for general function in the body. And they also contain vitamin A and vitamin E, fat-soluble vitamins. And they're also useful in your nutrition as well. So saying that you take away the oil completely, the fat component completely is also a completely wrong notion. The thing is, it should be balanced along with the food we take. You take oil in small amounts, fat in small amounts, you have proteins, and you have some carbohydrates as well. Now today, if you see India, we have a very high carbohydrate diet, okay? Or we have a very high fat diet. We don't have proper balanced diet. So you take too much of oily foods in burgers and trans fats and other things, or you end up with more of sugar kind of foods which is having more of glucose and other things, which are carbohydrate rich foods. Both of these extremes are bad, so you need to be in moderation.
Great. And is there some benefit of palm oil? Or is it?
Yes, all the oils, they all have unsaturated fatty acids, and these are good for immune function, brain function, as well as for vitamin A and vitamin E, and they are a very important component of your nutrition. So it has to be there.
Okay. And when we are talking about naturopathy, and that's what your core area is, what is the relation of naturopathy with gut health?
It's a very interesting question. So we in naturopathy talk about this thing that all diseases arise in the gut. This is a philosophical adage, a very old adage, been there since ancient times, and people are not giving many importance to it. It's only when after the new advent of technology we started looking at the human genome and then started looking at the microbes which are inside our gut. We are realizing that they also play a very, very vital role in our health. Now, intestinal dysbiosis, where you have a leaky gut syndrome, wherein these pathogenic bacteria can get into your gut and can cause ascending infections or can cause immune system to react to this particular microbial flora inside your gut. Itself is a very cause for migraine headaches, for asthma episodes, allergic disorders, and even some they also say that it can even modulate the metabolism of certain drugs as well. Okay, so a lot of research insights are now going on looking at microbiome, gut microbiome as a very, very important factor for cause of very diseases. Now the intestinal lining is there. This is formed after because of your intake of foods. It is different across different kinds of food. A non-vegetarian would have a different kind of intestinal lining, a different kind of pH, a different kind of bacterial colony. A vegan person would have a different kind of a bacterial colony. Okay, somebody who takes more of trans fats and alcohol and smoker and other things would have a different kind of a bacterial family, and each can cause a different kind of a disease and risk factor for those diseases. Now, trying to harmonize the bacterial colony within the gut by doing fasting, calorie restriction, by taking the right kind of food, and changing the flora of the intestine plays a very, very important role in reversing various diseases.
Awesome. And one more question before I let you go, sir, is that NCDs. When we look at non-communicable diseases, we are focusing too much on the modern medicine. But is there some wisdom from our ancient science that actually can help in NCDs? And specifically, with your research on naturopathy, is there something that can help us in managing the NCDs?
So, if you look at the guidelines from the American Diabetes Association, American Heart Association, to name a few, which talks about cardiovascular disease prevention or diabetes prevention for that matter, the first important thing is they talk about is self-management and lifestyle. They talk very clearly about physical inactivity and physical activity. They talk clearly about the obesity. They also talk about stress as also as one of the pathology for these risk factor for these diseases. So lifestyle is a very, very important risk factor. So unless you correct somebody's lifestyle, it won't. They will not be able to take care of their health or their diabetes, for example. In diabetes, you may be diabetic now. So diabetes is not just measured based on your glucose levels. So just because your glucose came down after some days doesn't mean that your diabetes is gone. Your propensity of the body to metabolize glucose, like you take a carbohydrate food now, if I take 200 grams of rice now, my sugar level went up to so much amount now. Suppose they say 50 points, 50 milligram per deciliter. Same diabetic person, the sugar level may go up to 100 milligram per deciliter. And that threshold, the sensitivity is changed.
Right.
Okay, that has to go back to normal. So that will not go back to normal because the genes which are responsible for increasing the sensitivity are already upticked and they're already overexpressed, and that's what is causing the shift. Okay, so to go back to that particular time, it will take a longer time where you have to maintain the good lifestyle, you are adhering to the proper amount of calorie intake, maintain the reduce the stress levels. So it is a tapas in itself where you have done a lot of wrong things in the last 30 40 years and you want to have a quick fix in another one day or 1 week, it won't happen. So you need to again follow the same thing for a longer time for it to reverse back to normal.
Awesome. Dr. Raghavendra, thank you so much for speaking to us on BW Wellbeing World. It's such a pleasure to have you with us on the Festival of
Pleasure
Wellbeing.
to be here with BW Wellbeing, and it's a very interesting topic and a conference to talk on.